Okay, so we're looking at the video now for the third speaker of the opposition. We just covered the third speaker of the proposition, and we're moving on now to this part of the debate. You should have this piece of paper. This will tell you all of the information that we've been arguing throughout the debate, and we can reference back to this as we're doing it. So the third speaker of the opposition has a couple of tasks, but first, you'll also see this as the opposition whip in the Asian British parliamentary debate. In the British parliamentary debate, it's actually the member of government, but in this case, it's the opposition whip. So when you're at the debate competition in Korea, you will see that this is what it is called. Now, there are two main things they must do. Third speaker of the opposition must do. First, you must rebut the remaining rebuttal, which is down here in the very bottom of the corner. And then you must discuss 2 or 3 main clashes. Now, we're going to look at 2 main clashes because of time constraints. And furthermore, we're kind of going to look at drug testing as we do the rebuttal. So we don't want to rehash that too much. The main classes are basically we're going to look at entertainment and we're going to look at health and safety. So without further ado, we'll begin with there, and I'll begin with the speaker role for opposition third speaker. Mr. Madam Speaker, the proposition team has attempted to rebut our third point by saying drug testing does not work, right? We've shown clearly that drug testing does work, that we have blood tests, we have urine tests, we have random and scheduled testing, that the samples are guarded to prevent corruption, and we actually take double samples so that, if anything happens to one, then we have something, to safeguard against that. And we've showed also that penalties are a deterrent, that people actually don't want to take these drugs because they're going to lose a lot of money and they're going to lose their livelihood. And to be a professional athlete, it's something special. So if you're willing to throw that away to hit a few extra home runs or score a couple goals or jump a little bit higher, you're really, no one's going to do that nowadays. They would have in the past because the penalties weren't as high, but not nowadays. And they try to say that it doesn't work because the chance of catching cheaters is very low, that or not being caught is very high, and the chance of catching them is very low. However, it's very obvious to see when someone is on PEDs. It's very obvious to see when someone is doing things that they weren't doing before, but now they're suddenly able to do. And we see this in professional sports all the time, especially going back to like Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa when they were talking about their first point. When they came into the league, they were actually just quite average looking men, and within a very short amount of time they were huge. And there's only one way you can do this. You can't do this in a natural way. And people knew, and they can see it. They knew, oh man, they've been taking PEDs, been taking steroids, and it's easy to see. And then if we can see it, then we can test people even more thoroughly. So there are different layers to the testing, right? We can actually go after people whom we can see are obviously cheating. Now, so obviously drug testing does work, and we should be using it. We should not allow PEDs just because the proposition team believes that it's going to enhance performance and it's going to be good for entertainment, and drug testing doesn't work because it does work, right? Now, there have been 2 other main clashes in this debate, and those have been entertainment and safety. Now, the proposition team has attempted to make a claim that the entertainment value is increased because of PEDs. They've attempted to argue, by looking back in the past at one example of Sammy Sosa and Mark McGuire and saying, oh, people loved it, people tuned in, people loved to see this kind of thing. This was before people really knew how bad these drugs were, how they were affecting people, how people were starting to get brain cancer, how people were starting to have heart attacks because of their PED use. And when we did figure that out, people were against it. People are still against it. That's why no one backs Lance Armstrong, right? He was one of the great American heroes, right? Cycling all around, winning all these tournaments, and people loved him. And then he got caught. And did they say, oh, it's okay, everyone was doing it because everyone was doing it? No, they didn't say that. They said he's a cheater. We're not going to stand by him, and nobody did. So it's clear that people do not care about entertainment value. They care more about the safety of the individual and watching clean people do sport, because when people use PEDs, it's not human anymore. When people use PEDs, It's not, it doesn't show their perseverance. It doesn't show their desire. It doesn't show their passion. It simply shows that they can stick a needle in their body to inject drugs. So this is not what we want. This is not entertainment, right? This is not what people want to see. Now, the second main clash is safety. They've tried to argue that if we allow doctors to supervise these individuals, that we can keep it safe. Doctors have no way of knowing what the long-term repercussions are of these drugs. There's no way to measure it until it happens. There's no way to tell if someone's going to get brain cancer, like Lyle Zado. There's no way to do this. So doctors can only do so much. They can supervise and say, we'll give you this much and see how it goes. And then they can look at the short-term effects. However, here's the big problem. This is not going to be enough, because what are these athletes going to want to do? Well, they're going to have the doctor saying you can only take this much. And he's saying, well, if I take a little bit more, I can do this better. So what are they going to do? They're going to take more drugs on top of what the doctor says they can take. Because we're not testing for drugs anymore, ladies and gentlemen. As soon as we allow PEDs in sports, there will be no drug tests. The proposition team would have you believe that we could still test for different levels of drugs. This is hogwash. We cannot do this because the drugs metabolize in everyone's bodies in different ways. So we can't say how much people took, but we can say they took it. So someone might take 100 milliliters or milligrams of a certain drug, and it might metabolize differently in their body, right? And those two people might have different readings, so it only tells us who's taking it. It doesn't tell us how much. So there's no way to catch these people who will be injuring themselves and who will make the doctors look like fools. And could even, how would you feel if you were a doctor and your patient died because of something that you thought you might have done? So clearly, Mr. Non-Speaker, right, if we look at this aspect and then we look at the chance of injury, the chance of concussions, the chance of broken bones, broken backs, broken dreams, if we look from these aspects, it's clear that the opposition team has the stronger argument. It's clear that the proposition team has either not thought this out very well or has no idea what they're talking about, because PEDs are pure athletic evil. They will destroy sports, they will destroy lives, and we must not allow them to be in sport. Thank you. Okay, so that was the third speaker of the opposition. The next speaker we'll look at the reply speakers in the next video, so if you'd like to watch those, you can watch those next, or if that is your speaker role. And if you have any questions, you can leave a comment or come see me in class